Shalom, my name is Leontine Cohen-Pauka and I'm a licensed tour guide in France and in Israel. During the COVID-19 period, I decided to make a series of short movies about subjects linked to Israel. The series is called In the Footsteps of. This movie is called In the Footsteps of May 14, 1948. What happened on this specific day? At 4 p.m. on May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was declared. Let's find out what happened behind the closed doors that led to this historic moment. 6 months earlier, on November 29, 1947, the United Nations voted in favor of the establishment of a Jewish state and of a partition plan. They gave the Jewish people the right to establish their state here. As soon as this resolution was adopted, a civil war started. Part of the Arab population attacked the Jews. The British prepared themselves to leave on May 15, 1948. But as May 15 fell on a Saturday, a Shabbat, it was not possible to declare the new Jewish state on that day. A solution was found. On Friday morning, May 14, the British governor left his headquarters in Jerusalem and boarded a ship opposite the city of Haifa, within the coastal borders. The new state would be declared in the afternoon of Friday, and the ship would leave at midnight. That's real diplomacy. Immediately after the governor left Jerusalem, a fierce battle started between local Arab troops that were helped by foreign armies and the secretly established Haganah. Haganah means defense. It was the clandestine Jewish army whose role until May 14 was to protect the Jewish communities against attacks of Arabs. As in preparation for this day, a ruling body called the People's Council had already been established with at its head the legendary David Ben-Gurion. The council had 37 members, some of whom will become ministers later. We just learned that when the British governor left, the battle started all over the country on the morning of May 14. David Ben-Gurion was kept continuously informed about the battles, and as head of the council, he had to make some crucial decisions. He also held a meeting to decide where to settle the new government. David Ben-Gurion, who dreamed of developing the desert, imagined the government there. The also legendary Golda Meir thought the mountains near Haifa, called the Carmel, were the best place. Why didn't they consider Jerusalem? Because in the adopted partition plan that the Jews had accepted, Jerusalem was meant to stay under international control. So, that morning it was decided that the new government building would be in Tel Aviv. They didn't know yet that the War of Independence that would follow the Declaration of Independence would result in them controlling West Jerusalem from 1949. Then a meeting took place to talk about the draft of the Declaration of Independence that David Ben-Gurion had written. Not all the members of the council came, some of them were blocked in Jerusalem. In this difficult period, it was only possible to join Tel Aviv by plane. The road was too dangerous. There was some discussion about the last phrase of the declaration that said, "We place our trust in the Rock of Israel." For many members, this sounded too religious. Many Zionists in those days were strongly anti-religious. And for others, this phrase was not religious enough. After David Ben-Gurion explained to them that he had chosen this wording as a compromise between the religious and the non-religious Jews, it was accepted by both parties. The choice for the name of the country also came from David Ben-Gurion. Alternative names were Judea, Zion, Eretz HaIvrim, meaning the land of the Hebrews, but the name Israel was accepted by everybody present. The location that was chosen for the ceremony for the Declaration of Independence was the Tel Aviv Art Museum. Otto Wallisch, a designer, had been asked only 48 hours before to redesign the building. He had the paintings of the nude women and men covered. He hung the portrait of Theodor Herzl, the founder of the Zionist movement, on a prominent place. He found chairs in the surrounding cafes, borrowed microphones from specialist shops, and settled the Philharmonic Orchestra on the top floor so they could play the national anthem, the Hatikva, which means the hope. The building was a small museum, not a conference hall, so there was no intercom to let the orchestra know when to play. A young boy was asked to run up the stairs to give them a sign when they were supposed to play. Otto Wallisch also found the parchment to write the declaration on, but there was not enough time to copy the text of the declaration before the ceremony. So actually, David Ben-Gurion read the declaration from a piece of paper that he held inside the piece of parchment. And we will see later that the declaration was signed by the present members of the People's Council at the bottom of the empty parchment. It is quite funny, because we all know you should never sign an empty document. The official text was copied above the signature a few weeks later only. To prevent a terrorist attack, the ceremony had been held secret. In the morning, invitations had been sent out without giving the address. Later in the day, a second invitation was sent with the address. All this for security reasons. Nevertheless, the news spread, and when David Ben-Gurion arrived at 10 to 4 in the afternoon, happy crowds had gathered all around the museum. At exactly 4 p.m. the ceremony began. David Ben-Gurion began to read the Declaration of Independence. The declaration had several parts. It recalled the biblical and historical link of the Jewish people with Israel, the history of the modern Zionism and the Shoah, the resolution of the United Nations, and the end of the British Mandate. It also expressed the wish to live here in peace with the neighboring countries, to work together for the well-being of the Middle East, and it promised that the Arabs living here would receive full and equal citizenship. Immediately after the speech, the new provisional government nullified 2 laws of the British Mandate. 1. The Provisional Council was now governing instead of the British. 2. Immigration of Jews to Israel was not illegal anymore. Then the present members of the council signed the empty scroll, and the little boy ran up the stairs and signaled to the Philharmonic Orchestra to play the Hatikva. Altogether, the ceremony lasted 33 minutes, 17 minutes to read the declaration, 16 minutes to sign. As soon as it was over, David Ben-Gurion rushed to his office to follow the battles that were intensifying all over the country. Among the present members who signed, there were 2 women. Rachel Cohen-Kagan, she was a social activist and the founder of the Women's International Zionist Organization, the WIZO. And the other woman was Golda Meir, a political activist who will become the first Minister of Labor and the first female Prime Minister of Israel in 1969. Also present was Rabbi Fishman. On May 13, a young girl knocked on the door of his house in Jerusalem, telling him a plane was waiting for him to take him to Tel Aviv to meet with David Ben-Gurion. This rabbi had always wished for a Jewish state, which is why David Ben-Gurion wanted him to be there. The rabbi wanted to bring a small suitcase, but the girl told him the plane was so small that it would only fit him, the pilot, and nothing else. When he arrived at the plane, he saw it was indeed tiny and said to himself it looked like a broken wagon, meaning it didn't look very safe. The Haganah only disposed of a few tiny planes. None of them were new, far from it. Their motors often broke down. When the rabbi arrived at the house of David Ben-Gurion, he was informed of the pending ceremony. He suggested that he would say the Shehechianu after the signing. This is the Jewish blessing for special occasions. Creating a Jewish state fell into this category, so David Ben-Gurion, despite himself and the majority of the council being anti-religious, agreed to this. When the rabbi signed the declaration, he added the 4 Hebrew letters to his name, meaning "with the help of God." And help the country needed, because the next morning 5 Arab countries simultaneously attacked Israel from all sides and Tel Aviv was bombed. David Ben-Gurion held a diary. He wrote just 2 phrases about the ceremony. It said, "At 4 p.m., Jewish independence was declared and the state was founded. Its fate lies in the hand of the defense forces." The War of Independence lasted until March 1949. The outcome sealed the future for the new state. There are so many behind-the-scenes stories about this historical day. I will tell you some more of them when I will be guiding you, hopefully very soon. See you next week, and a big thank you to my editor, Shlomo Cohen. Bye bye!